moderated by Shayne Veramallay. It's good to see you again, Shayne.
Hey there.
Featuring Sarah Sommers, co-founder and creative director at IFund Women, and Tara Reid, CEO of Apps Without Code. It's a pleasure to have you guys here, and I'll hand over to you.
Hey, thanks, guys. Pleasure to be here. Great audience today, I hope, and pleasure to have some great guests with us. I'm Shayne Veramallay. I'm a co-founder and managing partner of CAYABON, which is a sustainable development holding company that makes impact investments around education, economic development, and resources. With us today, we have Sarah Sommers, Tara Reid, Elisabete, Miranda. Enough about me. I would love to hear about these amazing women, and I'll let them all introduce themselves and give some background.
Well,
so let's go with Sarah first. I'll just go in order of announcements.
Great. Hello, everyone. Hi, Shayne. Thank you for having me, and hello to the other panelists on here. It's nice to meet you virtually. I guess I'm the only one with the background today, so whatever. I'm Sarah Sommers. I'm the co-founder and brand director at IFund Women. IFund Women is the go-to funding marketplace for women-owned businesses and all of the people who want to support them through access to capital, coaching, and connections. And it's with our online fundraising platform and our expert business coaching for entrepreneurs, as well as our super powerful network of women business owners, that IFund Women really should be the first stop on every entrepreneur's funding journey. So that is IFund Women in a nutshell. I don't want to take up too much time for intros, so I'll pass it along.
No worries. Tara, and a different Tara Reid than we're probably used to seeing. So.
Yeah, so my name is Tara Reid. I am the CEO of Apps Without Code. So we're a online education company. We teach people how to build their own apps and businesses around those apps. Usually when you think about building an app, you think about maybe like a better Uber, or an app that you download on your phone, but those are not the only kinds of apps that we help people build. Oftentimes people are taking in our school, our online school, whatever they know something about. So that could be a career in education, it could be a career in manufacturing, it could be whatever job you had before. And we help people find gaps in their roles that technology is not filling, and they will build an app around them, and they go usually license and white label that app to a bunch of companies and create real businesses and revenue for themselves. So I run an online school that does that.
Excellent. It's impressive. Elisabete?
hi, thank you for having me. So I'm Elisabete Miranda, and I'm the president and CEO of CQ Fluency. CQ stands for Cultural Intelligence. And what we do culturally relevant language services, translation for the focus on healthcare industry. So what that means, culturally relevant, is that in order to really communicate with someone, it's not only, you don't have only to appeal to the meaning, but the feeling. So that's what we do. We translate meaning and feeling of messages in 107 languages for the health industry.
Excellent. So let's go back to Sarah. What's been kind of the genesis of your organization? How to get started? What was the main reason? Was there some inflection point that you finally hit and said we have to do something about it?
Yeah, so we launched IFund Women in 2016, almost 4 years to the day, right? It was like days before the 2016 election. And our number one goal and the problem we were solving is the massive systemic inequalities that women face when raising capital for their businesses. And we are our own customers. We were experiencing the problem in a previous venture, which I won't get into just yet, but you know, we quickly became privy to the data surrounding the problem, right? So in 2019, you know, female-founded companies raised just 2.8% of the venture funding in the United States, and for women of color, it's less than 1%. So, you know, that's the funding gap, and that's the problem. And IFund Women was built to solve it. And myself and Karen and Kate and our incredible team at IFund Women, you know, that's what we wake up and work towards every day, which is closing that funding gap. So, and our North Star is really just getting as much capital into the hands of women entrepreneurs as possible. And, you know, we know it takes way more than just the funding. So that's why we've created this whole provides access to the coaching and the mentorship and the resources and the community that you need in order to really launch and grow a stronger, smarter, better business.
Awesome. And then Tara?
Yeah, so the question is just about how I got started and how my company began. Is that the question?
Yes. What was the impetus and kind of how it all began? Yep.
Okay, good. So I launched this company unintentionally. So before this is my second company. This is my second time as an entrepreneur. So prior to becoming an entrepreneur, I led marketing initiatives at Google, Foursquare, and Microsoft. So my experience and background was in tech, but I was not the one who was coding the apps or building the software. I was working on business departments and the marketing departments. And when I left Microsoft, I had launched my own startup. This was my first company. And I built an app that matched people to artwork based on their tastes. So it helped people find art, affordable art for their homes. And so we ended up building this algorithm that matched people to artwork based on their tastes. And along the journey, I was blogging about it. Like I was just sharing how the heck I built my own app without being someone who knows anything about coding, right? How I did that. And so I was blogging about it. I also did a TEDx talk on building apps without code. And I had a bunch of people coming to me saying, oh my gosh, I have my own idea for a startup, my own idea for an app. I'm not a technical person. I don't have a background in computer science. Can you help me? And so at first I was frustrated by this because I was like, I don't have time to help everybody. I'm trying to run my own company. Right? And then I decided like, okay, I keep getting all these emails, so I've got to do something. So I decided I was going to help 5 people. I like randomly was like, it's going to be $900. I literally just made that up. And I'm going to help 5 people and help them launch their apps and get them out into the wild and get their first customers. So I did that. We did that over 8 weeks. And then help them build it without code, without any coding background and knowledge. And then I opened up enrollment again and I had 70 people. And I thought, oh, wait, I think that there's actually a really clear need for this, for non-technical people who want to build technology, but maybe don't have $20,000, $30,000 to hire a developer, or don't have like 1 to 2 years to learn how to code before they even get started. So that's how Apps Without Code happened. It was really from demand and people emailing me from blogs and building out loud, publicly sharing what I was doing, which I found is to be one of the most helpful things that I can possibly do as I grow my company is like building out loud, tweeting, sharing all my business of the highs and lows, because then you end up getting people who gravitate to you, who want to help, who want to become customers. So it was really just from building out loud and sharing my journey.
That's excellent. Then Elisabete?
Yeah, that's a fascinating story, Tara. It's so cool. Like I think that normally entrepreneurship, that's the essence of it, right? You find a need, you have a need, and then you go solve your problem, and then you figure it out that so many other people that probably have the same needs as you do. So it's a fascinating story. And giving, right? So when you are talking, you are giving. You are not planning to have a company. So it always comes back. So I think this is fascinating. For me, it's not much different. So CQ is my 13th company. All the other 12 small companies was in Brazil, where I'm from, and it was always with either seeing an opportunity, but when I start something was for seeing a need. For example, when my daughter was born, we lived in the Amazon, and there was no daycare there. So then what I did, I opened a daycare. I had a restaurant, so I could not take care of my daughter. So I opened a daycare so I could put my daughter in and go run my restaurant. So, and it was very successful. Then when I moved to the US, I moved here without speaking any word of English. And one of the most difficult thing that we had was not only learning the language, but to learn the cultural difference. Also, a quick example goes back to my daughter. Seems like she's the inspiration of a lot of this stuff. So my daughter was in a school and we did not speak any English. And it was the second week that we were in the US, and they called desperate that I need to take my daughter out of school because she tested positive for tuberculosis. So I panicked because she was born in the Amazon. A lot of people have tuberculosis there. And I said, oh my gosh, she has tuberculosis, and I panicked. And we went to several places. And nobody, the doctors, including the nurses from the school, knew that if you are vaccinated for tuberculosis, when you do the test, you're going to test positive. Nobody knew. So she didn't have tuberculosis, but after several doctors, we figured it out. And that's pretty much is the inspiration of when I had to focus what I'm gonna focus on my business, focus on health, because you really can make a lot of difference of literally life and death in helping people not only in the US but around the world to have better health outcomes.
So let's stay on you for a second. So I know as a response to the pandemic, you organized a fundraiser on behalf of Oasis of Heaven. So if you don't mind talking about it, what were some of the aspects of that, your involvement, and the outcomes that you saw from it?
Sure. So at my company, we do love to give back in many instances. One of it, back in 2006, we started this program that instead of giving clients gifts that they don't need at the end of the year, we decide not giving gifts and sponsor kids around the world. That's a program that we have now since 2006, and we sponsor over 150 children around the world. So it's part of like our nature, giving back. So back in January, we had our 20 years anniversary, and I also we want to celebrate, but we did not want to have anything fancy. So we had a nice party, but I decided to get the same amount of money that we spent at the party and donate to Oasis, because it's an incredible organization that helps immigrants like myself that don't have where to leave their kids. It's in a very underserved community in New Jersey where we are located. And so they help all the women by even taking care of the kids and giving English classes and all these things. Amazing organization. So I got acquaintance then. When the pandemic came, one of the things that they do also is give meals to families that are in need. And when I learned that they had normally they have a day, they were serving 70 to 80 meals a day. With the pandemic, the need was for over 1,000 meals a day. So we decided to run a campaign, not only our money, but we put a lot on social media and sent to all our clients, and we asked for donation, and then CQ match the same amount, and we donate. So they were extremely happy that they could serve the underserved communities in our neighborhood.
Wow, I love that. It's great that you're able to find various mechanisms to kind of give back like that. And I didn't know you're in my own backyard here in New Jersey, so that's great.
Oh, where are you?
I'm in Hillsborough.
Okay. So the city that I'm talking about, Oasis, is in Patterson. So you probably
Yeah, it's not that far.
Yeah.
No, it's great. I mean, there's a lot of great activity and ways to engage these populations, and unfortunately there's a lot of communities like that around our country that could use this great work. Yeah, moving on. So, Tara, I think what's interesting about this environment, right? So I work with a lot of startups with my other hat on. Right now it's a great opportunity to start a new business. And I don't know if I'd always recommend fully ditching everything and jumping spot in, but it's good to know about what are the costs involved. What do you recommend for people that may not have the budget right now, or have the ability to hire developers and doing something that's a little bit more cost prohibitive? Is now a good time to use this kind of no code strategy?
Yeah, I think maybe I can share some specific cost information, like cost of starting a business that I experienced, because I think it'll be helpful to kind of break this down. So I launched my first startup, and I think it's actually really important to there's this quote that's my favorite quote. It's like, successful people start before they feel ready, right? So Shayne, to your point, you don't have to immediately quit your job, but you do want to start putting out tests. And the test that you want is not like, hey, can you give me feedback on my idea? It's more so, hey, are you interested in being a customer of my idea? That's the best feedback that you can get. So those are the types of feelers that you should be putting out. And in order to do that, you often need to have some version of whatever the product is that you're going to offer, even if it's not the perfect version, even if it's not completely complete. In my scenario, I'm often helping people with apps and online digital products. So if I think about when I started, I spent probably no more than $1,000 a month for the first 6 months of launching my startup. I was not paying myself, but just in terms of like costs and things that I use. I'll give you like a really clear example of this. When I first started, there were not all of the amazing no-code software tools that there are now, because when I first started, it was 2014. So there were a few no-code softwares, but no-code had not really become a thing really until very recently. This year has been no-code's big year in terms of people building apps and software without code. So in 2014, when I started, I was like, instead of me trying to do tons of research and hire the right product person and all of that stuff, let me just figure out how I can quickly get my product out to people. So what I did was I took a survey, and I think I used Survey Gizmo as the first version of this. And you know how like sometimes you'll take a survey and it'll ask you a question like, what's your favorite color? And it'll be multiple choice. And then you choose your favorite color. Let's say you choose purple. And then there's a follow-up question that referenced your first question. So like the follow-up question might be like, great, why do you like purple? It knows you selected purple. And what it's doing is it's just showing the purple follow-up question, but it's hiding the blue follow-up question. The blue follow-up question is still there, it just doesn't show it to you, right? So what I did was for the very first version of my product, I was like, what resources do I already know how to use that I already have at my disposal? And maybe I can use them in an unintended way. So I took this survey and I would fill it up with artwork recommendations. And if someone said that they liked photography, it would show all the photography and hide everything else. Or if someone said that they liked photography that was black and white and had a budget of $1,000 and below, it would show all the things that match their taste and hide everything else, right? And people would message me, and for cost perspective, I paid $35 a month to access this software. I think it was like $35, $39, something like that for the subscription. And people would message me like, oh my gosh, this app is so great. Thank you so much. I love my recommendations. Here's the one I want to buy. And little do they know, it was not an app at all. It was like a survey. I was just like, what do I have that I already know I can use? It was a survey tool where I was showing and hiding. Now, later on, we got way more sophisticated with the product, but like day one, that was the first version of the product. And what's interesting is we made our first $35,000 in sales with that hacked together survey. And I took that hacked together survey and went to 500 Startups, which is a top tech accelerator in Silicon Valley, and raised another $100,000 to get going and build more sophisticated versions of the product. But like that was day one. It was like I paid for my Survey Gizmo subscription. It was like $39 a month. And I paid for like a MailChimp subscription to send the emails out that said your art recommendations are ready. Like I just found quick things I could use online. And we got an email system for our art advisors to send back, like just small things that were all under $1,000 a month to get started.
And so what's your business model then? Do you aggregate these solutions and resell? Like how do you function?
Yeah, good question. So I run a different business now. My first business for Directo, which is the art startup. And then now I run a separate company called Apps Without Code. So we're an online school. I can give you both. But for the first business that I launched, which is often like my touch point when I give people examples of what you can do without code, we would sell artwork. So we would pull artwork from different websites that was publicly available. And then most of the artwork, like our average price point was like $1,500, $1,000. And so we would sell the artwork. Someone would say, I want that. And then we would go to the artist or the gallery. And what's very common is to negotiate like a 30% sellers or dealers discount. So we would negotiate that discount. We would sell it to the customer for exactly what list price was. And then we would take that like 30% margin. So that was how the business model for that company launched. The company that I run now, Apps Without Code, is an online school. It's really straightforward. We have an 8-week training program on how to do all of this for yourself. We don't use surveys or more sophisticated softwares to use now, but that's just a flat tuition program, and it's $1,900.
Got it. That totally makes sense now. Now I get it.
Yeah.
I was wondering how that all ties together.
Yeah.
Awesome. So Sarah, let me switch gears a little bit to kind of the human capital piece of this. So I guess you and Karen Khan were co-founders. Can you explain a little bit like how you guys found each other, why you chose each other? what was the chemistry like, and what were you in the know at the moment, and then how has that actually helped you craft that going forward?
Yeah, I love this question. It's like, our dating history, right? So Karen and I met working on a previous venture, right, along with our third co-founder, Kate. And, we were hustling. We all had grit. We quickly all became like ride or die for the work we were doing. And, in somewhat of a similar vein, it was our focus was basically focused on the female creative economy and creating spaces for women to have honest conversations about the things that mattered most to them, and doing it with, support from video content. So I think, Karen as the visionary, it was somewhat of it was YouTube for women, essentially, right? Okay. And long story short, Kate and I shared that passion, and we immediately jumped on board. And, it's like right time, right place in terms of how we met. I have like no helpful, tips to pass along in terms of how we came together. And yes, we got along. Yes, we worked really hard together. But ultimately at the end of the day, selecting co-founders, moving forward as co-founders, there's a leap of faith element regardless, right? Even no matter how well on paper you all fit together, the holes and gaps you fill for each other based on your expertise versus theirs, at the end of the day, it's a leap of faith. And a startup, a growing business, there are so many obstacles, amazing opportunities, just events that occur on a daily basis that challenge your ability to grow your business or just move you forward. And it's all in how you react to that as a team and as a cohesive unit. And Karen, Kate, and I have just been lucky enough to continue to grow together and really believe that between the three of us, we can drive this vision forward and close the funding gap for women entrepreneurs. I mean, that's really it at the end of the day. So it really was like right time, right place for us.
I love it. You're lucky it worked out the way. A lot of people don't have such good fortune.
Totally. Yeah.
There's always founder nightmares. Well, speaking of funding, let's just start with you, and we'll go backwards again. How did you guys get your first initial slug of capital and get started to get that in place?
Yep. So we Tara, I'm obsessed with what you said, building out loud. Like we were on customers before we even knew it. We started building out loud. So we were, on the tail end of startup number one, and the light bulb had gone off for us, and we went ahead and crowdfunded ourselves to fund, the MVP of IFund Women. And much like Tara, it was a scrappy little MVP, did not make the mistakes we made with our first startup where, putting way too much money into tech that we had not proven demand for yet. Mm-hmm. We said, we really felt like we were onto something, but wanted to raise a reasonable amount of capital that we knew exactly how it would be allocated in terms of building a really scrappy MVP product that we could bring to market with like an invite-only beta list, which happened to be made up of like 20 badass women entrepreneurs who were building amazing products and services, who decided to crowdfund on our platform. And so, yeah, it was crowdfunding, and it was through that experience of crowdfunding ourselves, and then of course, listening to our very first customers, that it became super clear that in order for this to be successful, in order for us to actually solve the problem, we have to address the other equally as important issues and obstacles that women entrepreneurs face. So it was like the lack of coaching, right? And the lack of community. And so, fast forward now, we have this super robust, coaching platform where you can receive one-on-one coaching on all the topics that matter most to you as an entrepreneur based on where you are in your journey. And then we have our community that continues to grow, where you're surrounded by other female entrepreneurs in the hustle with you, which I think we underestimate. If you're not a part of one, you underestimate the value of that. And until you really tap in and start taking advantage of the resources and support that you can receive from other women who are building their businesses, until you do that, you really can't feel and touch how valuable that is. So so that was sort of our journey in terms of our first tranche of funding. And then of course, since then, you know, you monetize the products and services that you build to meet the needs of your customers. And then once you got some traction, you go out there and you raise some money. And so that's what we've done to this point.
Got it. And then Tara, how'd you go about yours?
Yeah, so really different routes for each of the companies that I've run. With the first company that I launched, we raised a small amount. We had gone through the accelerator and tech accelerator sort of path. So we raised probably total $300,000. And it was the process of raising that even small amount of money that made me realize that I do not want to run a VC-backed company. That is not what I want at all in any way, shape, or form as a founder. So and what I mean by that is that I think a lot of people don't often think about like what it means to raise capital, right? That when you are taking on investment, you're giving up some ownership of your business. And the only way, particularly in venture capital, that an investor is going to make their money back is if you sell or you go public, right? And so you are going to inherently have some pressure to sell as quickly as you can at the highest valuation you can, or go public. Usually sell though, right? And that wasn't the kind of like go fast, build fast, and scale at all costs. That wasn't the kind of culture that I wanted to build my company in. So when I launched my second company, I got a chance to use that knowledge of having that experience to do it differently. So we've raised $0, where we do about $5 million a year in revenue, 34% margin. We haven't raised any and don't have any intention to. So that is two different stories of how I've approached raising capital as an entrepreneur. I think I'll just close that out by saying that if you choose to bootstrap, so not raise money, that you are choosing to only be able to run certain types of businesses. The type of business where you make 99 cents for each customer per download, or where it's like $5 a month, you need a lot of 99 cents to pay your bills and to pay your team's bills and all of your operating costs once you grow. And so it usually means that those types of business models are off the table for you. And you have to pursue business models where customers pay up front, or you have enterprise contracts, or even if it's direct to consumer, you're going after customers who have willingness to pay. It is not intended to be for everyone, for the whole world to use immediately. Most products are not for the whole world to use immediately. Even Facebook was just for Harvard students when they launched, right? Yep. But you have to make different strategic decisions around the kind of business model you go after. It is not workable to say, I'm going to bootstrap, but I'm going to use a VC business model. Usually those two things don't work hand in hand.
No, and I love that you point that out, right? Because that is a big delineator where, you're talking about business 101, where revenue minus expenses still equals some level of profit, right? Which a lot of times Silicon Valley backed companies are more about land grab and hyper growth and acquisition of a certain audience, right? Yeah. So
and forget
again, it's a totally different model, totally different beast, but I'm glad you found what's working, and congrats on kind of growing that organically. And Elisabete, what about you?
Oh, for me, the beginning is very different. So when I start here, I had no idea of private equity, venture capitalists, or anything like that. Neither did I have an intention to really start a business. So it was by chance. I started working with my sister-in-law, who was a translator, and I had, as I said, didn't speak any English. She was a translator. I was proofreading the Portuguese, so I did not need to know the English. And because numbers are all the same, I told her, well, maybe I can help you with the bookkeeping. So first thing that I found out doing her bookkeeping, that she had no money to pay me. So I said, oh, that's not going to work. So probably what I need to do, this is a good opportunity. I need to make this company at least grow a little bit so I can pay myself. And that's what I did. I found another job. Actually, I was a babysitter in the morning, very early morning. I would go to that job, like make the money to help my husband to pay the bills, and then we start growing the business. And we did so. And after a little bit, when I learned how to speak English, I said, you know what, this is a very good business. I think we can take this to another place. But I'm not interested in being an employee. So if you want to be my partner, we can do that. So I need to have a little money to pay her. And I had saved money during this whole time. That was like 4 years, having 3 different jobs and not taking any salary. So I made the calculation, said, all this time you should have been paid me for that. So that means you did not pay me. So I already have this and complete a little bit. And moving forward, like after 6 years, love my sister-in-law, but totally different mindset. She loves to be a translator. She doesn't love business. So I got myself, I said, we either get this here that do not go anywhere, or let's sell the business and so I can do something else. Story short, she didn't want to do that. So I ended up buying her out, also with savings. And then from there, I totally changed the business by going, I'm very involved in the diversity arena. I have several Fortune 500 contracts, and I never had to raise anything. Now, thanks God, I'm in a good position where I have all this private equity people and venture capitalists make investments and want to make investments. I don't have a need. One day I will sell my business. I'll then get some money to do that and try to grow more to capitalize in the second wave. But that's pretty much it. It's totally self-funded with a lot of sweat and tears. So.
Well, I love the level of scrappiness across all of you guys, right? So everything you guys are talking about was born out of need and not abundance, which always shows through, which is just, it kind of forms your character along the way, and along gives you gray hairs too, but I get it. Tara, let's go back to you. Is there any one factor that you would say contributed most to your success? Was it an experience? Was it someone? How would you describe that?
That's a good question. I always find this question to be interesting, like when I talk to other entrepreneurs, because it's not always like a completely good thing, right? Like it's usually like some unhealthy balance of like a want to prove yourself that like most people, like I'm not sure I would always wish on other people, right? Like that's what makes entrepreneurs. There's a little bit of like chip on your shoulder that I've got to prove myself. That's what makes, I think, most entrepreneurs that I speak with. And I think that in the beginning, for sure, it was a lot of that. I think now the thing that like drives me and is like useful for my success, at the beginning, it's like scrappiness and like, let me prove myself. Now I think it's morphed a little bit to like a focus on lifestyle design. For me, like I build my company around the kind of life that I want to live. I intentionally work 3 days a week. I like that. I spend the other days thinking and spending time with my family and just doing other things, right? And so for me, the thing that is useful for my success is always asking myself, why am I doing this? Like, why are we growing right now? Why are we trying to get more customers? Like, what are we trying to accomplish with this? For me, I'm thinking about the lifestyle that I want to live, the lifestyle that my team gets to live. Like, those are things that I'm often thinking about, but bringing it regularly back to that question has been really helpful for me in just sort of what's been useful for success and driving me forward.
I love it. And Sarah, what about you?
Oh, can I just take Tara's answer?
Yeah.
No. I mean, there's so many different ways I feel like I could answer this question, but it's like on this day when we're talking, I feel like, and hopefully this doesn't come across as totally cliche, but what has led to our success, two things that probably sound cliche, but are so freaking true to our business, is making data-driven decisions, right? Like, and I don't want to discount, the value of following your gut to some degree as a founder, as it relates to like your vision and getting where you want to go and all that. But ultimately, when you set your ego aside and look at the numbers and make decisions based on the hard facts and data, if I look back quickly, like that is what has contributed so much to our success. Also, surrounding yourself with tons of people who are way smarter than you. That's also a really good move. I mean, like, you know, maybe for some people that's a given, but just keep that in mind. Like when you come across brilliant people, like, you know, don't let anything get in the way of bringing them into your world. If they share your passion and want to get involved, and you have the means to you know, bring them onto your team, don't miss those opportunities, because those are the special people that like are really at the root of what's driving the success of your business. And you know, as founders, we're not experts necessarily in all the things. So like, you know, fill the seats with people who are and who know what they're doing, and can help you bring your vision to life. And then I had a third, but I'm just going to pause. I mean, I could go on and on really. So we'll leave it at 2.
All right. Nope. Thank you for that. And let's talk a little about the technology angle and how we're leveraging, you know, different pieces of what's available today. So Elisabete, I guess CQ Fluency is using you know, a lot of different language processing. What are you doing with AI and other tools to kind of improve efficiency on your end?
Absolutely. So actually, I constantly talk to my team about this. Like sometimes in our days, we forget that we are a language company because it's so much about the technology. Everything that we do is about the technology. So we use technology for automation. We use technology for leverage of previous translated articles and content. And with AI, we have a whole, I have a VP of process and technology, and we established, like in the beginning of the year, we did our strategic planning for technology for the next 3 years, which seems like redundant in technology, because in 3 years probably is a whole different thing. But we have a very well specific roadmap where we are implementing AI and machine translation, machine learning in everything that we do. It's very interesting that our clients now, especially corporate clients, they ask, right? So whenever you will have to answer a request for proposal, you have to put all the plan of how we're going to utilize and how you foresee AI being implemented in the language service and the services that we deliver. So we are using frequently. It's something that we absolutely cannot stop, like thinking and seeing the trends and seeing what's out there. We don't develop our own technology. However, we utilize the best that is in the market to leverage and provide customized services to our clients. Is incredible. Like literally, we forget that we are language companies. Everything's about the technology now.
And anybody else? What are you guys doing? I know, Tara, you've already kind of chimed in a bit on this, but Tara or Sarah, anything you guys want to add on your end?
Tara?
So for us in our company, we're not using, the question is about AI specifically, you know, like we're not using a ton of AI in our day-to-day for our business. However, we're often helping people find the tools that they need to do AI with no code, or to do any other piece of technology with no code. So it's usually about like referring people and pointing people to the right direction, because there's now lots of tools that you can use for this sort of stuff without having coding backgrounds.
Got it. And I think we have time maybe for one question. So I'll ask this to everybody, especially in line of the pandemic and the virus. How much strategic visioning do you guys do? And do you guys look at a 1-year timeline, 2 to 3 years, 5 to 10 or beyond? Like, where do you guys kind of put your perspective? And I'll let Terry, you answer that since you're staring right at us.
Okay. This is something I regularly debate with myself. So it changes. I usually am looking at like a 1 year actual like detailed planning timeline. And the reason for that is because, at least for a startup, for a company like ours that is 4 years old, like so much changes in a year that by the time we get to the end of that year, like we've got to replan. If we've planned 5 years in advance, we've got to reset the plan anyway. In fact, like every 3 months, I find that like we've got to re-look at the plan. So I'm mainly looking at annual and quarterly, but I do have like a vision for the team. It's not planning tactically, but like a vision for the team for like 10 years that I usually share with them, but it's not like tactical planning of 10 years because I find that with startups, it's not as useful to have like a tactical business plan for 10 years unless you need to submit it somewhere.
Yep, that makes sense. Sarah, what about you guys?
Yeah, I think it's not unlike Tara's, right? So it's quarterly and annual, and that's where you're getting like the very specific tactical, goals and milestones that we're looking to hit over those time periods. And then of course, we hold ourselves accountable as founders to continuously remind ourselves of what that 5-year, 10-year vision is for the company, and make sure it aligns obviously with our North Star, which is funding for women-owned businesses. And that's really it. And we do as much as we can to be as transparent with our team as possible and make sure all stakeholders are involved as necessary in order to, execute. But yeah, it's quarterly, it's annual. And then, it's for our entrepreneurs who are, at the earliest stages of starting their businesses in some cases, right? We when thinking about like their online fundraising journey and those first steps for them, we have a very strategic sort of timeline in place for them as they prepare to online fundraise and raise that first round of capital and prove demand for their business and their product or service before they invest in supply. And that can be anywhere from like a 90-day period where they're doing the work and projecting out exactly how much they're going to raise, what exactly those funds are going towards, what they're building in the next 6 months to a year. It's critical, and we can't say it enough to our entrepreneurs, which is like, you have to know what you are going out there to raise money for before you actually press go and, try to raise $500,000 for who knows what, right? You got to be super clear. And that's why we have our proprietary coaching playbook and methodology that gives you all the tools where you can really map out, okay, this is what I need to do. I need to, launch, I need to build my prototype by this date, and then I need to launch my beta by this date, and I need this many testers, and so on and so forth, whatever it may be. You have the tools to plug and play essentially and build out that timeline and that strategic vision for yourself before you go out and fundraise.
Love it. And then Elisabete, I'll close out with you.
Yeah, pretty much for me, it's the same thing. I don't believe in anything 5 years anymore, because 5 years, everything changed. The world's changed, right? So we have a vision that is like at least for 3 years ahead, like the vision for the company actually in general. And we do our yearly strategic planning. We follow a methodology of OKRs to be quarterly looking where we are and correcting course. But pretty much it's like right now we are in the process, so updating. And when we look at what was last year, some things that changed was how remote we really think we're gonna be. Right now, I'm much more open. I hate writing and I love talking to people. So it's very good to be in the office. I had to change that. So I'm changing strategically where I can source people now, which is much easier. There's not a lot of people in New Jersey only from my industry. So now the world is my backyard. So it's great.
Well, this has been great. I really value all your insights. I hope the audience found this helpful. I think it's a lot of great learnings along the way. Sometimes hard lessons learned, but that's where you usually gain the most insight and perspective going forward. So thank you all for participating, and I'll turn this back to the host.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for a great panel there. It was so interesting to hear all of you talk about all the different elements of entrepreneurship. It was great to hear Sarah talking about how she sort of fell into finding right place, right time, finding her co-founders, but that really maybe you were manifesting those decisions and the choices you made through picking great advisors, working, with a community, having coaching. Elisabete, I love your story of working with a family member and then, realizing maybe the synergy is not there and buying her out, which is an incredibly difficult thing to do, I'm sure. And what I love that you said, Tara, was, transitioning from this entrepreneur's mindset of having a chip on your shoulder and charging ahead to make ground and prove yourself, but then sort of transitioning as you mature into thinking about the lifestyle that you want to create for yourself and for your team and out there in the world. So thank you so much. Really great stuff. And thank you, Shayne, for brilliantly moderating. We're going to move on, but before we move on, if you would like to know more about strategy and execution, please go onto the SVC website and download a free guide full of case studies and insights by registering to the newsletter. There's going to be a screen that's going to come up now that's going to show you how to do that.